Cool. What's up, guys, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. My name is Vin.
And I'm Chris.
Let's do this. So today we're going to be talking about some PlayStation stuff. They've had a good week compared to previous weeks that we've talked about them. So yeah, we're gonna give them some praise today.
We'll be pro PlayStation today.
PlayStation today, yes, indeed. So we got some news on PlayStation sales as well as how Xbox is doing, and we're also going to be talking about some things that Xbox have been sort of hinting at in the background of their streams. We'll dive into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
As well as PlayStation's recent state of play, which they've just had. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But first, Chris, I heard in the grapevine that you have maybe completed a game.
Yes, I did.
What game have you finished and how was it?
It was the only game I've been playing for the last sort of several years, Horizon Zero Dawn.
So it feels, right.
Yeah, and I loved it. It was awesome. It was everything I thought. The tiniest little bit of criticism is that, I don't know because it's released in 2017. It was the whole, this is the ending. Let's talk to my friends and get their reaction about being there before the ending. And that's just been done a bit. It was fine. I forgave it, but it was, and I don't know whether or not it's, because it was back then it wasn't as old hat, but now it's 2021. It's definitely old hat to do that, but it's it's an RPG, so what else are you going to do in an RPG?
Yeah.
So, but yes, no, really enjoyed it. It was great. And I think a note of a good end battle is that I died once, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I like it when you die, you learn from your mistakes, and then you're like, okay, I know how to do this now, and then you achieve it.
Yeah,
it's when you start playing games like Dark Souls or something where you die 25 times before you learn your mistake.
Yes.
That's when it's, yeah.
So, yes, it was great. I really enjoyed it. How about you? What have you been playing?
I have been playing Neo 2. I'm still chipping away through this. I've been playing a few games, actually, not just Neo 2. But I'll discuss that, I guess, like most. I mean, I was stuck on it a little bit at first because the way that it sort of structures it out, it has main missions, and then it gives you a load of like side quest missions that you can go and do. The problem is that the side quest missions are all just rehashes of the main missions, and they either flip the map or they put you in a different position, so you have to progress through. And it's like any other Souls-like, really, where you're just trying to get through the level, just fighting enemies off, sort of thing, through various struggles. And which is fine, but like after a while, you get repeating bosses and things like that, and you're just like, yeah, it just feels like they're milking it now for everything they've got, but it's still enjoyable. Like I'm still enjoying the game for the most part. It's just very sort of mechanic heavy, and it just feels like the first game, but they've just added like more features which aren't really contributing to the story or the gameplay. Really, it just feels like it's more busy work and more complicated. But if people enjoyed the first game, then they'll probably enjoy this one. So it's not too dissimilar from that. But I'm enjoying it. Like it's not so bad so far. So. But other than that, I've been playing through Chrono Trigger again.
What's that?
It's an old SNES game. Like I'd say old, but it's not that old. It came out in like 1995. Old JRPG. I'm playing that on an emulator right now, and I'm really, really enjoying playing through that again. I haven't played it in a few years, so yeah, I'm gonna carry on chipping through that one in between getting absolutely wrecked by Neo 2. But we'll see.
Very good. I had some parcels through this week, actually.
Uh-oh. Okay.
And I got some things to show you. So we talked about this last week.
Hide your children, viewers. Like,
it's coming. Ready?
Right, here it comes.
The Nacon
it's a
controller. This is what I did the last bit of Horizon Zero Dawn on, because my hands were crippled by the regular PS4 controller, and it comes with a little Bluetooth thing that you plug into the PlayStation. So it's wireless. I don't know if you can see on there. The only criticism I've got really is that I ate crisps and you can still see the crisps. So it's like PS1 type plastic. Right. But apart from that, it does everything that I needed it to do. It's asymmetric. And yeah, it does the job. And my hands, I can, see, look, it worked. My fingers still work. And
Is
then,
that? Do you think like the like talking about the controller for a second? Do you think it's because of the where the analogs are offset, like they are in the Xbox? You know, like it's above the D-pad. Is it anything to do with that, or is it just like how you're?
no, no, I don't think so. I think where the controllers actually are is actually fine. For me, it's the back, and when I'm moving the thumb, my hand is counterlevered on the back of the controller.
Oh, okay.
And if
That's interesting.
And if it's at a place where my hands need to be clenched more, then that somehow that makes my knuckles stiff, and I don't like it, and my hand doesn't like it at all. I need to have my palm as open as possible, grabbing onto something substantial, which I'm used to in my daily life.
Right.
For other things. And so when I'm holding on to something smaller, it doesn't feel right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, my wife knows more about that, but yeah, totally. What else did you get in the mail?
I got something else because I've been working out in my Oculus Quest 2, and I've been playing Fit XR, and I've been playing it like pretty much every other day religiously, and I've been getting better and better at it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. But my head gets all gross from the foam on the Oculus Quest 2, just the default foam insert. They call it the interface. And then I got this through the post, which is...
Looks like a box.
VR Cover. It's the company. I don't know if you can see that. VR Cover.
Right.
And I bought a replacement cover for... I think it was £30.
So it's just a foam insert that goes between your...
So it's not a foam insert. This is an unboxing. I've only just opened it up because... let's open it up. Live unboxing. Should have prepared earlier.
Yeah, this is definitely vigorous stuff for our audio listeners.
It's me opening a box.
Chris is pulling apart the box. All right, Chris just fell down the stairs.
So that's the plastic insert that comes with it. And it's got a little nose blobby so that the light doesn't come through your nose hole like it does in real life. Mm-hmm. And then this is actually, it's foam, but it's covered in like a pleather, so you can wipe it down. And it comes in 2 sizes. And it was supposed to come with eye holes.
It's probably on the floor.
Yeah.
Based on the noise.
The eye holes are actually missing. Dun dun dun.
There's an Amazon
revelation on live unboxing on gaming podcast. I'll have to
yeah, speaking of the Oculus Quest 2, I just ordered a new because like the default sort of strap that comes with the Quest 2 isn't that great. Like it's sort of like an elastic thing, which it works perfectly fine, but it like suctions to your face really hard. And I was looking around, and I ended up diving in and buying a third party sort of new sort of head case to sort of house it. And I ended up going with one called like the Halo strap, which is very similar to sort of the PlayStation VR headset, where it sort of goes over the top of your forehead rather than like on your forehead. Mm-hmm. And then it goes around the back of your head, but then it sort of attaches to it loosely at the front.
Right.
And yeah, it just everyone's saying like this is 5 million times better, and it's better for like moving around and doing fitness apps and stuff like that. So yeah. I bought that. It's probably going to take about a month because they ship from China, as do most things. So it's probably going to take about a month, but I shall report back when we've got a bit more information on that.
Let us know. This was VR case, and they are European. They're not based in the UK, but it was on Amazon. It was next day delivery, so
nice.
Pretty good. Should we move on then?
Cool. Yeah, we should chip on. Like I said, we've only got like a little bit of news this week, but it's mostly good news.
Mostly good news.
Makes a change.
Yeah,
we're not just bitching, which is nice. So this week we got a bit of PlayStation news. PlayStation is outpacing the PS4, and GamePass is also smashing it. So the PlayStation 5 the PlayStation 5 is outpacing the PS4. So the PlayStation 5 has sold 7.8 million systems, which is kind of bananas. Yeah, that's a lot of PlayStations. considering people can't actually get hold of them, which is good. So it's reportedly sold 7.8 million units despite the pandemic and all the shortages. At this point, the PS4's life cycle, it was only at 7.6, so they're pretty close. Not so bad. Though it does have to be mentioned that the PS4 was only sold in certain regions. That's the only caveat to this sort of thing, which a lot of people have been sort of glossing over, like probably because they just didn't know or they just forgot about it for whatever reason. But I was one of those people when the PlayStation 4 came out.
Right.
In the Japan region, we didn't get it like at the same time as everyone else.
Huh.
Which is weird, and a lot of people don't believe me when I tell them this, but it was totally true. It came out in November of 2015, I want to say 2014, 2015. I can't remember the exact year.
I can't remember the years. No,
might have even been 13. I think it was 14. I get confused because like we didn't get it at the same time, but we got it in the February afterwards. So it was sort of restricted to only North American regions and European regions. So in Asia, it was really short on units. I didn't get it until the middle of February, I don't think. It might have even been March. But yeah, so take all the numbers that saying, like, it's awesome that the PlayStation 5 is selling so well.
Yeah.
But like, take the whole part of the, it's outpacing the PS4 with a big pinch of salt because it's not entirely accurate, like in terms of one-to-one comparisons, because the PS5 did come out at the same time as the North American regions in Japan as well. So
because,
that's the only caveat to that.
I remember there was no headlines about people not being able to get hold of a PS4.
Yeah.
So there's that, which is very interesting, and that's all the headlines have been filled with, is that you still can't get hold of a PlayStation.
Yeah.
So it's weird that they sold more, but they're open to more places. So yeah, it's kind of six of one, half dozen the other, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes me wonder why they didn't do the same thing this time as well, because it clearly worked last time where they kept it to North American sort of regions and the European regions. Not to say that Japan doesn't deserve to get it at the same time, because they absolutely do, but it's interesting that they didn't take the same strategy considering like how short they are right now. And they probably knew like how short they were going to be as well. But yeah, fascinating stuff. Maybe just more people complained when the PS4 came out and there wasn't any like available for the Japanese region. So
maybe, yeah. But then you'd have thought, 7 years later they would have forgotten about that. Or
yeah.
Oh, maybe this is a different. Maybe this is in response to the pandemic, parts not becoming available, and so the narrative is more understandable, that people understand that hardware is more difficult to get hold of.
Yeah,
so maybe,
definitely.
Maybe it's just a quicker way for them to get more money by just releasing it out to everywhere, knowing that there's a run on hardware.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for that, because a lot of people always say, they do shortages on purpose and stuff, and I never believe that. Like, I never put the tinfoil hat on and actually believe that, but I think they certainly benefit from it when it does happen, because at this point, there's so much buzz around the PS5.
Yeah.
It's free press. Like, they're constantly saying, "Oh, the PS5 is available here now," and everyone's diving on it and trying to grab one. And it's just constantly in the sort of news cycle of saying, "Oh, PS5s are in shortages and stuff." Like, it must be a really great console because it isn't available anywhere. It's sold out everywhere. And it's sort of like yes and no. There's definitely some parts of that which are true, like in terms of like, yeah, a lot of people want these things and rightfully so. But at the same time, like, yeah, the pandemic has put a massive dent in this, but it's only just bringing around good press. And Xbox are benefiting from this as well. Like, the exact same sort of thing is happening with them, where whenever a new shipment comes in and it's all over Twitter, it's like, oh, Walmart have got them all of a sudden, and everyone dives on them, and then they're just gone straight away. So yeah, really interesting.
And it's interesting at the same time that Xbox don't release their figures, so we can't really do a comparison.
Right. Xbox stopped releasing their figures during the Xbox One days, I guess, because they were just having such not a bad generation. Like, Xbox One wasn't necessarily a terrible generation or anything, like something compared to like the Wii U. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. It was just every sort of probably every quarter they would announce their numbers, and it would be half of that of the PlayStation 4. So I totally understand why they stopped reporting their numbers, because it's just bad news constantly. Yeah. So makes no sense for them to just suddenly like change that around just because it's a new generation, I guess. That's probably the sort of mindset, because they, like, let's be honest, like the Xbox is probably selling the same amount as what the Xbox One was, like the Xbox Series X anyway, compared to the PlayStation 5. It's probably the same sort of story again. So,
well, they've
like,
launched
if you,
with more versatile choice, haven't they? They've launched 2 consoles at once, which is
exactly
interesting.
I mean, this was the second part of the story. Like, while I was going to say, like, while some are more eager to compare the PlayStation 5 sales to the Xbox Series X or the Xbox Series consoles, because, like you said, there's 2 of them. It does have to be mentioned that like Microsoft really aren't focusing on hardware sales anymore. It's not really their prerogative, and I think that's important. You know, like I'm not just like being sort of like defensive for Xbox or anything like that. I've got both consoles. Like I'm quite happy to enjoy them both, but it has to be said that Xbox really aren't chasing hardware anymore. Like that's not their thing. Like they're trying to sell subscriptions to people. That's their main thing. And I was going to bring this up because as well as PlayStation is doing, Xbox have doubled their subscriber count for the sort of Xbox Game Pass service, which they have, and they've gone from what was it about 13 million? It was like 12 million subscribers back in September, which was still pretty decent. But since the Xbox Series X has come out, they're now up to 23 million subscribers. So they've almost doubled. And that's a lot of people.
That's a lot more than 7.8 million.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I have to like try and not make that comparison too much because I think Game Pass is also on Xbox Series, Xbox One X as well as PC. So you're sort of spreading this out over what is like 4 different platforms, like including Series X and Series S. Yeah. As well as mobile devices, as well as, like we're starting to see press now of people just not buying a console and they've subscribed to Xbox Game Pass and they're just doing it through Xcloud and they're just playing games over a Chrome browser because you can do that now.
And it's not, they're just playing non-competitive games, you're sort of like first-person games, and they're not noticing any latency or any lag or anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing an RPG or something, like, you'll never install a game. There's really no reason to. So it's kind of interesting though. Like we're seeing this. Like PlayStation is very much still going after hardware, and they're sort of relying on these numbers, and that's why they're constantly announcing them because it is great news for them. But at the same time, Xbox really are only announcing their numbers. Well, they're not actually announcing their numbers, but it's a bit more. You can sort of dissect their quarterly earnings and sort of figure out like exactly how many subscribers they've got and things like this. So we can. It's strange that they're going these different paths, but at the same time, it's great. Like it's good competition. Yeah. But the main thing which I wanted to mention about all of this is that this is all good news. This means that the industry is healthy. People are buying Xboxes. People are buying PlayStation 5s. Game Pass subscriptions are going up. PlayStation are probably about to announce something to compete with Game Pass, I would hope, in June. So next month, I guess, like E3 is next month. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Next
month. That only just dawned on me. So they're going to be announcing something next month to compete with all this. All of this is great news for gamers. So that's my main thing, which I wanted to sort of mention.
So that means we've only got 4 more episodes until it's the month of E3. So
Indeed.
How much more hype
no, there's probably like 5 or 6 before it starts.
Yeah.
Because there'll be a lot of announcements before it. Like people will want to get in before.
That's true.
So yeah, you're right. It'll probably kick off in about 4 more episodes as well. So we have to start doing our predictions.
Yeah, start doing predictions. Well, this is the first prediction that PlayStation will announce a competitor to the Xbox Game Pass.
They just have to. Like that. Yeah, I mean that's just a baseline requirement at this point. They're just gonna have to, like, they can't ignore Game Pass. It's like I said, 23 million subscribers. Yeah, that's only gonna grow. Yeah. So yeah.
I think it's interesting that they're diversifying what their focus is, and I think that's really clever and really great because it means that we can get consumers can get the best of both worlds.
I agree.
I think it's still risky at this stage for PlayStation because they're kind of putting all their eggs into the games. So they're promoting their games that are exclusive to PlayStation. Indeed. Because at the moment, if you've got both consoles, well, you can be a testament to this, that if there's both games being released and it's on X Pass, on Games Pass, you'd play it on your Xbox.
Right.
You wouldn't pay 70 quid for a PlayStation version.
Yeah, and I mean, this is like I normally lean away from the whole like exclusives are the most important thing about a console. Because I don't really agree with that, because like there's plenty of consoles in the past that have had amazing exclusives and failed, like the Wii U is a great example.
Yes.
Some fantastic games on that system, 10 out of 10 games. No one bought it. And like you look at any other instance, like if you just take a step back and look at game sales in terms of like what consoles have exclusive versus what don't, 9 times out of 10, the reason why people go over one console over another is just how cheap the console is most of the time. And it's just, that's normally how it goes. But now we've sort of set up this situation where exclusives are becoming more important for the first time, I would argue.
Yes.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because PlayStation do have amazing exclusives and Xbox does have the value aspect of all of this with Game Pass. So it's going to be a really interesting battle over the next sort of 12 months to see, well, not a battle. Like I say this lightly, obviously, but I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see how this sort of pans out, because they're going to constantly be trying to one-up each other, because both companies have got so many great games on the way.
Well, have we talked about Returnal? Did we talk about that last week?
Yeah, we mentioned it a little bit, but unfortunately I'm not like really into roguelikes. I mean, it's getting reviewed well, and that's another good piece of news for PlayStation, I guess, which is the whole aspect that game is getting 9 out of 10s at the moment. It's doing really, really well. Everyone seems to be enjoying it.
Yeah, I've not heard any bad press. I've heard a lot of people going, I'll steer clear of this game because of X, Y, and Z. That's not bad press. No. If anything, that's effective marketing, which is what we want in the industry. Marketing targeted to the people that are going to enjoy the game. And so far, the reviews I've seen are by people that really enjoyed the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, like, the only reason why I didn't pick it up is because I'm not into roguelikes. That's the only thing. I'm just not one of them people. And and that isn't anything to do with the quality of the game. Like, the game looks fantastic. Like, it looks really, really good. But the whole aspect of like doing runs and within the game, and then you can spend up to 2 hours a run at times, it says. But if you die, then you just literally start from the beginning with absolutely nothing. Like, you're literally restarting the game, and you're just trying to learn the game and get through it in the end. And that's one of my sort of pet peeves, is when a game wastes my time in any way. Like, I just instantly get annoyed by it, and I'm just not. I get frustrated by that sort of game mechanic. Not anything to say about the game. It's just my personal preferences. I'm just not into Returnal.
Yeah, I just don't have any time. Like, my time is too precious to sink into a game where 2 or 3 hours can be the same on a playthrough. I say the same. Roguelike, same similarities. People know what I mean when you say repeating a playthrough. We know it's not exactly the same. AI is different, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. You can choose different weapons, different path. But yes, if there's nothing too unique, then I'd prefer to play like a single player campaign or something. Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially with my limited time now that I'm an old man.
Yeah.
Which brings me to an interesting point. Now I'm at a loose end. What do I play?
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of options. I mean, especially as you've got a PlayStation 4 Pro, right? So, I mean, you've got access to all of like the PlayStation, Pass, like the Games Pass thing.
The Games Pass, which I'm
is
signed up to that.
Right. So it's got, I don't know, it's got like Days Gone in there, The Last Guardian, things like that, right?
I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great games in there. Have you played God of War yet?
No, that was on the list. It was. I think the short list is either God of War or another one of the Uncharted games, which I think could be Uncharted 3 or 4.
Right. If it's the PlayStation 4 one, then it's Uncharted 4.
Right, Uncharted 4, and that's a good one.
Yeah,
that's
they're all
the
great.
Rope swinging. Well, they're all great. Yeah. I haven't played a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, God of War was my game of the year for 2018, so I can't recommend that one enough.
Okay.
Fantastic game.
Okay, I might do God of War next then.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, it sort of brings me to the one question which I wanted to like get posed, I guess, was the whole like, should people, like, with all this good news about all the consoles selling and stuff like that, and the Series X is doing really well and the PlayStation's doing really well, and the question that sort of comes around with that is it time to try and pick one of these up if you can? And the only thing I would say is you're not really missing on anything yet. So don't freak out too much. Even though these are in short supply, there's not really any great, like, there's no games that couldn't have been done on last gen sort of thing yet, I would argue.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Yet.
Yes. If you're not going to be picking up Returnal. But if Returnal is totally up your street, then yeah, I guess you could say buy a PlayStation 5.
I mean, while Returnal is a PlayStation 5 exclusive, I haven't really seen anything distinctively within that game that couldn't have been done on the PlayStation 4, if that makes sense.
Well, there's the 3D just sound feels and like, the haptic feedback on the...
Sure, I mean, small things, but, you know, like that, is that really...
Is that selling consoles at the moment?
It's debatable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's them sort of questions, and that's normally how I look at video games, like especially in the start of a new generation. Like if that nothing that could have been done on the last generation, then is it really worth buying yet, sort of thing? Yeah. And is it worth buying at $70, which is a hell of a lot of money compared to something like Game Pass, or compared to like the cheaper games, which are still amazing on the PlayStation 4, like especially with like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn and things like this.
Yeah,
like is it
for free? For free,
essentially, yeah. So it's sort of like, yeah, it's not really. Don't worry about it. Like if you're seeing all these sales that go by and you can't get hold of a PlayStation 5, you're not really missing out on much, I would argue.
You've probably got a huge back catalogue. That keeps cropping up in Twitter. Everyone's like saying about my back catalogue is huge. And this happens every generation console launch. Yeah. People want to make sure that they've played everything that they wanted to play on the console while they've got it, while they might change, they might change from Xbox to PlayStation or vice versa. So they want to make sure that they don't miss the boat with their back catalogue. And I can totally understand that. Yeah. And now's a great time to do it, especially if there's people, struggles getting hold of a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox. Because there's definitely nothing really out that's nothing out at the moment that's really piqued my interest, really enough to warrant 500 quid console and a 70 quid game.
I mean, that is actually a good segue to one of the other stories which we were going to cover towards the end, but I guess we can jump into it from that, which is that PlayStation had a state of play.
Yeah,
this week
now.
Yeah, which is. As I was saying a minute ago, where there hasn't really been any games that couldn't have been done on the PlayStation 4 yet,
until
PlayStation just showed off Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart, which is, I would argue, like there's no way that could have been done on the PlayStation 4. The way that you can switch between levels on the fly, and the way that you go through literal sort of dimensional rifts, as it were, and you can switch into new sort of places. Like it's impossible to do it on the PlayStation 4. So I would argue that they just showed off the first truly next gen game. Like,
say yes.
Demon's Souls did look a bit pretty, I guess, but it's not anything that couldn't have been done on the PlayStation 4. Miles Morales literally was on the PlayStation 4 as well. Yep. Doesn't look hugely different apart from some of the ray tracing and some of the haptics.
Yes.
Returnal, again, I think that totally could have been done on the PlayStation 4 without any sort of issue. But Rift Apart is, to me, the first truly next-gen game for the PlayStation 5, and it looks absolutely fantastic. But what were your thoughts on it? Did you watch the State of Play?
I did. I'm not really into universally appealing games so much. Some things like Ratchet and Clank, but my jaw dropped and I actually made some like wow noises and like ooh noises. I was like geeking out on the hardware, pretty much like what you were saying. When the level was loading in instantly, I was like, oh, looking at all of the cars flying in the futuristic city and looking at all the polygons on the screen and knowing that they're polygons because the physical objects are moving and you can see that they're real flying cars. I was like, oh. And then looking at all the animations of all the enemies that were squashing and stretching and animating, and the animation cycles, the AI of what the enemies were doing, and the particle effects, just everything was next gen, I think.
It looks absolutely stunning, to be fair. Yeah, I mean...
do you know there's reflections in Ratchet's... is it Clank's? Which one? The furry one.
Yeah.
There's ray tracing
Ratchet,
in the eyeballs of Ratchet.
Yeah.
Which I was just like, you'd never notice that, except in photo mode, which I'm guessing is, well, it was a screenshot of the video, but to have that level of detail in the gameplay is totally next gen. You just could not. It would just be not enough power to do that in the last gen. So yeah, I was blown away, and I was like, oh, this is actually game changer.
Yeah, no, it's like your reaction is bang on. Like it's a next gen game. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to sort of argue with that. There's so many different mechanics which you just mentioned that you couldn't have done on the PlayStation 4, and it makes me excited. I just recently I played the remake of the original Ratchet and Clank game, which was on the PlayStation 4. Another game you should check out, by the way. You should put that in your back catalog.
Okay.
It's just a remake, so that sort of introduces you to the characters and the world and stuff like that. So that would probably be a good starting point. Even though they did mention in the state of play that you could jump into the new Rift Apart game without having any sort of experience in the Ratchet and Clank game. But I don't know if they're just saying that to sort of cover their bases or whatever, because they always say that. But,
well, I kind of got the idea of what was going on.
right.
I kind of got the idea of the baddie being a baddie, and the heroes being the heroes, and introducing the new character. Yeah. I kind of got that.
I would recommend checking out the remake. I'm pretty sure that's on the pass as well, like the PlayStation Plus like games collection or whatever they've got in there.
Yeah.
So worth checking out, especially like in the run up to this game. You can probably finish it in a day.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I finished it last year. I played it for the first time, and I loved it. Like I thought, this looks like a cool little kids game. No, it's actually a really decent little platformer. So I would highly recommend it.
I was really impressed by the amount of weapons that they seem to have, and the fact that the weapons did different things depending on how far down you pulled the trigger. I thought that was really interesting, and would keep it fresh. Like, because those sort of kiddie platformers can get quite repetitive.
Right.
But if you've got options on the fly of just how you move your finger, that could keep things really interesting. And the fact that it seems like you go back and forth between the two different characters, was really, really interesting. And the fact that you can load in a whole new level while fighting a boss, it's just like pressing a button. And and the post-processing effects as well when they're dodging, and there was like several of them on the screen. And that effect looked really nice, and it was so crisp and sharp, and it was really
very well done. I remember last year when they first showed it off, like during one of the gameplay sort of reveals that they did for it, and when you were going through the rift, like there was sort of like a stutter as you were going through, and I was like, maybe that's like the bottleneck or whatever. Maybe I don't know if they'll be able to fix that, because it's it's just like as fast as these SSDs are, like I just don't know how you would be able to streamline that in any way to get it even faster. But no, they've totally, like, based on this new state of play, which they just showed, like it's totally smooth right through. And it was like, Jesus, okay, that's cool. That's where the SSD comes into, where it comes into prevalence here. Because like a lot of people were complaining like about the SSD sizes, and it's like, well, I know they're faster, but they're so small. Like, is it really worth the trade off?
Get on there, yeah.
Right, and this is the testament to why SSDs are important, because you just wouldn't be able to do this on a mechanical hard drive. Like if you were to pull out the SSD and put a mechanical hard drive into PlayStation 5, this game wouldn't exist. Like they just wouldn't be able to make it. So it looks absolutely amazing. Like I was really, really, really blown away by it. So
yeah, I was really surprised about how impressed I was, because I wasn't expect. I'd seen bits and bobs, and I knew the premise, and I'd seen the mechanic of them going through. But watching the whole thing from start to finish, I was like, wow. And then I thought to myself, can you imagine that being in with 3D sound as well?
Yeah.
That would just add an extra thing to it. And it's so bright and colourful as well. They were getting lots of colours on the screen as well.
Yeah, I mean the best like compliment I can give, that it looks like a Pixar movie, Like it looks like you're playing a Pixar movie. It's just that simple. And if you like, there's so many people on Twitter that are saying stuff like, "Oh, I can't wait to play this game with my kids" and stuff. Like they're gonna absolutely love this. It's gonna be a great gateway game for a lot of new gamers coming into the industry, just purely because of how this game looks. Because between how it looks, the animation, the rendering techniques, like you said, like things like the 3D audio, it's just so many different things which they're pushing with this title in particular. And if this was like the PlayStation 5 launch title, I might have been like a lot more sort of excited about the PlayStation 5 instead of the Demon Souls remake, which, like I played that on the PlayStation 3. I wasn't like overly impressed by the gameplay of that game anyway. But this one looks like, as you said, no pun intended, but a game changer.
Yeah. I think you're right. And thinking about it, yes, if me choosing what am I going to be buying next, I've got a 5-year-old boy, and so I want to get him into gaming. that we tried with the Spyro trilogy, the remake,
Right.
and that's great, but it's still of its time. The mechanics of it's still not the best game for a kid to pick up and play.
For sure.
It's pretty tricky for me as well to even complete some of the bits and bobs. Again, it was just because the dragon does this, and this is what a dragon can do, and this is how they move, and there's some difficulties with that. And the look of it as well, comparing that was my last sort of kiddie game, even though it was remaster, it's like night and day between the two games. So yes, it's a really interesting time when it comes out. What money I'm going to have, what situation I'm going to be in, it's all going to be a factor. But it's definitely affecting my decision.
Yeah, I guess that was the next sort of question which I want to pose to you specifically, which is, as a person that hasn't bought into next gen yet, like coming from a person that has got both of them, like I've got the Xbox Series X, I've got the PlayStation 5.
Yep.
I'm excited for all these games coming out. But you haven't jumped in yet.
Yeah.
Like, is this the game that would make you jump in, or is there anything like further down the line? And if so, are you leaning towards either or at this point?
So with me, it's an interesting time because money is a weird thing at the moment. I've just had my mortgage offer accepted. So I'll be having a house, and I'll be getting a house soon.
Yeah, 30 grand of debt. Enjoy.
Yep, looking forward to it. But I need to pay off all the big deposits and solicitors and stuff like that, and then I need to figure out how much money I'm going to have left to do up the house, and then it'll be like, okay, I've got this much money.
Yeah.
What can I buy? So money, like what you said before, money is going to be a huge factor. If I don't have 500 quid and 70 quid for a new game, or if I just have 500 quid and 70 quid for a new game, and there isn't a game out there that I think is going to keep me hooked for a long enough time, I'm going to go for like the Xbox. So if the Xbox is cheaper, and with the Game Pass and have all the games, then I'll do that. Unless you recommend something else, or E3 comes along and blows me away with Horizon Forbidden West, and I just get all mushy over that.
Well, you have just come off the back of Horizon Zero Dawn, so it's sort of it'll be interesting to see, because like if PlayStation do come out next month and say, hey, we've got our own answer to Game Pass, like we're going to call it Play Pass or something like that, right? So Play Pass comes
terrible,
around.
Mate.
Right, I know. I can't think of it.
Just so good enough, like it's just so bad enough that I wouldn't be surprised if they called it Play Pass.
Right, it's got a good layer of cheese to it that it would probably work. But like if they did come out and say this, and it's got a similar service, but probably not as many games or whatever, and they say, okay, we're going to answer to this and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We've also got Horizon Forbidden West coming out. We got Ratchet and Clank that just came out, and look how amazing that game was, and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see, because obviously at the same time as all of this, that sounds like PlayStation have got a good foot in the door if that all happens. But at the same time, next month, if Xbox come around and they say, oh, by the way, we know like PlayStation have done that, but hey, we've got these 25 games were just announced that are coming to Game Pass day one, and it's a really interesting time, especially now that the rumors are flying around that games like Battlefield 6 are coming, that could potentially be coming to Game Pass day one, which is a huge game for me. Like it's one of my favorite franchises. Like I pick up them games every single time they're released.
Yes,
and that's a huge deal as well to a lot of people.
I missed out on the last one. Again, that was just money wise. I just didn't have enough money at the time to sink 50, 60 quid into a game.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
And I think I was still playing Red Dead Redemption 2 at the time. So I still had plenty of hours to sink in. So that one unfortunately passed me by, which is interesting that I call myself a gamer and I'm invested in gaming, and I'm call myself an indie developer. But I still will miss games just if I'm playing another game. And
just too many video games. Yeah. Too many. I miss them all the time. Like I still haven't played Mass Effect. There's things like this.
Yeah.
So,
but you're going to get the Legendary Edition, though, aren't you?
Oh, of course. Like I've already, If there was any game that deserved to be pre-ordered, it's probably that one.
Yeah, I guess the hype is right there that it's well founded. It's not It's not just fanboys being fanboys.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to remakes or remasters, like you know,
You know
it's
they're
already
going to be good. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
That's like God of War, like because they're like I just didn't like the look of it, and then it wasn't until I'd seen that there was a sequel and the sequel was also getting bigged up that I thought, okay, yeah, maybe it is for me then. And
yeah. God of War is amazing. Like I know a lot of people that haven't played the new God of War, sort of go off the back of what the old games were like. They were sort of arcadey, just about like aggressive, like just ripping things apart and just angry dude like running through Greek mythology and just destroying everything that he sees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The new God of War is completely different. It's nothing like that.
Right.
So I can't recommend it enough. It's very much in PlayStation sort of wheelhouse of, it's like The Last of Us and Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's about characters. Yeah, it's a lot less about the violence of stuff, but it's an absolutely amazing game. Like I can't give it enough praise. I've played through it a couple of times now, and I'm looking forward to playing through it again before the next one comes out, just so I can play it on the PlayStation 5 and play through in 60 FPS and stuff like that. So
yes,
yeah, an amazing game. Can't recommend it enough.
So, come back to your question, Vin. I guess it's all to play for, because it just literally depends when I'm in a position to spend the money, what is out and what's been announced on E3. Like, if I had the money now and it's a different money situation, and I'd be asking your advice, like, what should I get? And I'm guessing I would go. Xbox, really.
Right. So if money wasn't a factor, and you had to, like, you had a gun to your head right now and say, Chris, choose one right now, and you'll get it on your doorstep. Like, that would be
that would probably be PlayStation then. Oh, I don't know. It's so hard.
Really?
Yeah, because of Horizon Zero Dawn and Ratchet and Clank, I know is going to be good. So I know there's at least 2 games that I know is going to be solid. I know there's going to be some cross-platform games which are going to be solid in the next couple of years. Halo. Oh, so hard.
Yeah, it's strange because we don't really know what's going to make it this year for Xbox until next month. So it's sort of it's hard to understand like where everyone is at. Really, I know, because for all we know, like Bethesda could come out and be like, "Oh, by the way, here's Starfield. It's out in November," and that'd just be like, "All right, this changes everything."
Xbox, because again, space, Bethesda, RPG. Yes, please. That's all my boxes.
Hard to say no to.
Yeah. I mean, that's why there's so much buzz about it, because it's ticking all the right boxes.
It's Bethesda, man. It's Bethesda Division 1. Like, the people that make Skyrim, the people that made Fallout 3 and 4, like, these are good games. Like, they're good 10 out of 10 games. Yeah. And if they've been working on Starfield for, like, the past 6-7 years, it's kind of hard to be bad.
Gonna be good. You know? I hope it's not another Cyberpunk, though. That's the thing.
I mean, there'll be Bethesda jank. There's always Bethesda jank.
But people love the Bethesda jank, and the Bethesda jank can be entertaining way more than.
There is a line of
CD
like,
Projekt Red.
This is charming, this is charming. Then it goes to like, all right,
like I instantly
this was a waste of money.
This off. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if Starfield's on Game Pass, then like, how angry can you get at it? You know, like there's that as well.
Yeah, I might have to think about how I can afford both. I mean, luckily my Bitcoin's been doing quite well, so we're in a good place.
Win-win.
But yeah, I guess both.
Yeah. Both. Well, saying that, I'm glad that I got both, because I like being in this position now where I can sort of shop around, and when a new game just shows up on Game Pass, and I can jump onto that, and then if like a really amazing sort of PlayStation exclusive comes around, then I can just buy into it without any problems. I really like being in this position, but at the same time, I wouldn't recommend anyone be scrambling for a console right now. Not until we get like a bit deeper into this. Like, by the end of this year, I think the competition will be a lot more clearer, and I'll be like, okay, I know exactly what I'm getting into with both of these, so I understand like which one I want to go for. So it's sort of a bad question to ask you at this point in time. But I know that the what's that PlayStation game that's really well received? The Playhouse. Astro's
Playroom. That's like a good few hours though, isn't it? It's like a proper full game.
Yeah. It comes with the console. Like, it's basically a demo to show off the haptic feedback and how that works. But saying that, regardless of the fact that it's a demo, it's an amazing little platformer. It actually came out of nowhere. Like, the fact that they didn't big this thing up a little bit more than what they did is sort of strange, because like there's a reason why they, like, PlayStation pretty much took out the sickle and they've killed off like a lot of their Japan studios. That was the only one that survived, like that studio that makes that game. So it's sort of it's interesting because they are at the same quality as sort of, you know, Nintendo platformers. Like it's really strange that we don't see more from these guys. So yeah,
well, it's
really
not,
great game though.
It's not what they're trying to push, I think, is it? PlayStation at the moment, they're trying to push these big budget exclusive AAA titles,
Yeah.
and not the. And Xbox seems to be doing like the hey, it's an indie showcase and come here, and they're putting a lot of money into indie developers.
Yeah. It's sort of like PlayStation are going after the quality, and there's a lot less of it. But when one comes out, like PlayStation will probably aim for like 2 massive exclusives a year, like one in the middle of the year and one at the end. And that's probably just their market strategy now. And we're sort of seeing that, like Horizon Forbidden West is probably going to come out at the end of this year, and Ratchet is their middle thing. And then they might have like a couple of things sprinkled throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to be their sort of plan. Whereas Xbox on the other side are just taking a shotgun round and just like, we've got all this, look at this, look at these indie games, look at Game Pass, look at, we got this exclusive coming out and stuff. Like it might only be like an 8 out of 10, but we've got like 5 of them coming out this year, opposed to like the 2 10 out of 10 games from PlayStation. So it's really about, you know, really, really interesting sort of dynamics between these two companies at the moment.
So are you spending more time on your Xbox than your PlayStation at the moment then, you'd say?
I would say, yeah. Just purely because of the amount of options that you got on there. Like I'll probably spend more time like browsing through Game Pass and actually playing games, but yeah, to be honest.
That must be a cool feeling. Like I can play any one of these like instantly right now.
Yeah. But you do the same thing with Netflix. I mean, you got to look at it in the same way in that respect, you know, like it's sort of looking at, okay, we can either do Netflix or we can go out and like choose a box set for $70 and just chip through that one box set. You know, that's sort of what it's like. And it's a really interesting sort of dynamic between game companies, because I don't think they thought that this would happen this quickly, but it's sort of coming around, and especially with streaming getting introduced and how you can stream over like the internet through a Chrome browser or whatever now. It's I think by the end of this generation, I think things are going to look a lot different for the industry than where we're at right now.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to come back mid-year and you figure out how much time you're spending on each console, and then look at the end of the year as well. This first year of like the next gen consoles, like what journey this first year is taking is really going to be interesting, because it could set the way for the rest of the 7 or 8 years, 6.5 years or so, which is really interesting because anyone could come out on top, as it were.
Anyone can take it. I mean, but that's the interesting thing. Like, I mean, even if someone does come out on top, like if PlayStation sell more units or if Xbox sell more games or like if there's more Xbox subscribers, at the end of the day, everyone's doing well. Yeah. So it's sort of, it's great. Like I'm glad that there's so much competition. I'm glad that like people are finding so much value out of something like Game Pass, so PlayStation have to like wake up and be like, crap, like we need to get on this, otherwise we're screwed, sort of thing. Like this could explode like way beyond what we're doing right now, because you're basically offering this service and you don't need a console, and we've got to ship this $500 system to people before they even buy one of our $70 games. Like it's a huge like paywall to get through just to get to one game. It's $570 before tax.
Yes,
like that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
you know,
to play one game.
Play one game,
2 games, because you get the
playroom game. Yeah, playroom game. But yeah, I mean, compare that to something like Xbox, where like you can just download a Chrome browser and pay $10 and you're playing the Medium, you know, like which just came out, which is really like, again, that's one of those games which you can't play on last gen consoles. Really, like it would really struggle like trying to render like both worlds at the same time, even though the game wasn't very well received. It wouldn't be possible. But the fact that you can pay $10 and just jump into that is sort of insane. So.
Yeah, I get excited every time I talk about it, because it's really exciting not knowing what is going to be sat in my like TV cabinet like a few months from now. Really interesting.
No, it's great because we're at this point where for the first time in a very, very long time, we've got 2 generations that have come out the gates very, very strong. Like normally you get one that comes out like just smashes through, and then the second one sort of like, oh, it's got a few problems. Like Xbox One had a lot of problems at launch, like the whole online only, and just the whole like coming packed in with the Kinect and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of stuff that was wrong with that console. In fact, it was $100 more than the PS4, even though it was less powerful and things like this. There was just a lot of bad news and a lot of bad press around the Xbox One. But this time, they both just like banged out the gates and they're running in different directions, which is good.
Yes.
But there's just so much good stuff coming out that it's hard to like, it's hard to argue with. And when I see these idiots on Twitter that are just like, oh, Xbox and like PlayStation 4 Pros and all this sort of stuff, or Sony ponies and stuff like this, I'm like, you guys are insane. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is good for everyone. Like, when Xbox does well, PlayStation will do well off this because they'll have to constantly compete with each other. So
it's always the kids that don't know. They've not been through a few consoles. They've not been through a few consoles where they don't know that like they take it in turns of being on top. It seems so. You know, don't back one horse because eventually it's not going to pan out well. It's risky, and you know Nintendo are coming in and doing some stuff as well, so they're still in the game.
Oh yeah, Nintendo like in terms of Switch sales, like they're absolutely smashing stuff. And for all we know, next month Switch could be announcing a Switch Pro. Nintendo could be announcing a Switch Pro, and if that happens,
that could be my next console.
Right, it could be that.
Yeah, 100%. That could be my next console if it's cheap enough. They've got a good lineup of games. It's going to look good enough on my 4K TV.
Indeed.
It's going to be a good enough frame rate, and the price is right. I want to be playing me some, all the Mario and Zelda that I missed out on over the last generation. Speaking
of that, we can actually move off onto our last subject, which has something to do. Has something to do with the Nintendo Switch. But Xbox have been up to something recently.
Or have they?
But yes. There's obviously been like a few sort of Xbox sort of consoles sort of talks like between the acquisition of Bethesda and things like this. Whenever someone shows up on a camera recently, it seems, we keep seeing Nintendo Switches in the background, which is weird and odd. And I'm not sure if like this is sort of like a message to the gamers saying, hey, we're fully inclusive here, and when we really like Nintendo as well as our own console and stuff. And like, who knows, they might have like a PlayStation in the background of one of their videos coming up at some point to say, hey, we're just happy to be gamers and things like that. But there's been a lot of talk recently because it keeps happening, and it's not just happening and like Phil Spencer's desk at home sort of thing where there's a Nintendo Switch in the background. Phil Spencer's a gamer. It could just be there for the fun of it because he enjoys them. But it started showing up in other places as well. There was, I think, during the Bethesda acquisition, there was, what was her name? Sarah Bond, who's a part of the sort of Game Pass ecosystem, and she sort of heads that. But in the sort of backdrop of hers, which was an official sort of Xbox place, like an in a proper stage
Xbox statement-y stream. Yeah.
So they had a series of shelves with the Series X and the Series S on there and stuff. But at the very top, you can see the sort of Joy-Cons, the distinctive color of the Nintendo Switch. So a lot of people have been sort of speculating and thinking, what does that mean? Like, what are they hinting at here? Are they hinting at anything? Because, I mean, before the Xbox Series S was announced officially, the console was actually hiding in the background of one of Phil Spencer's streams. So it's not the first time that they've done this.
That's true. That's true. So it could be another Easter egg, because that was an Easter egg pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, this poses a question like, what do you think this actually means? Does it mean anything big? Is it just complete nonsense? Is it just them enjoying video games? Like what's your take on this?
Well, it could be a few things. What I'd like it to be is Nintendo and Xbox working together to share games on the platforms.
Right.
That's what I'd love it to be. I don't think that's what it is. I think more likely it's going to be Xbox being able to stream their Strada, their Xbox streaming service, Xcloud onto onto
the Switch,
the Switch, sorry, onto the Switch. I think that's probably more likely what is happening. However, do I think it's set in stone? no, it could be just early talks, and it could just be Xbox saying, look, we like this console, let's put it in these streams, and let's just watch Twitter blow up just as a bit of greasing the wheels, as it were, of the negotiations. I think that's probably what's happening. It could just be their fans, and it could be a snub at PlayStation. For all we know, could be like, PlayStation doesn't belong on the back wall, but Switch does.
Yeah.
Could be that.
Shots fired.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my wall is good enough for an Xbox, and it's good enough for a Switch.
But not PlayStation.
But not PlayStation. So it could be that. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the most likely scenario is that Xbox are putting Game Pass on the Switch, which is huge. That's massively exciting as well. Like the fact that there's no other handhelds out there really, other than phones, that like there's no competition between them really at that point, because Xbox don't have a handheld. They don't do any games like what Nintendo make, so there's no conflict of interest really between these two companies.
Mm-hmm.
So if they did work together, it would be a match made in heaven, basically. I mean, like compared to the PlayStation, they do have games like Astrobot, and they do have Ratchet and Clank, which are competitors with Nintendo and what they're doing.
Yep.
Xbox don't really have that. They're a lot more about serious gamers and serious gamers. Like I'll get my head cut off for that. But
you will, yeah.
Like for younger gamers,
serious
I guess.
Games, yeah.
Right.
I'm making a puzzle game, Vin, so I'd take that. Take that as a hit.
Indeed, but yeah, I think because these companies are so diametrically different, I think if they did work together in any capacity, it would be a good thing, especially for parents that have a Switch for their kids that they're not going to be playing it at night. Like instead, if they can just pick up the Switch or like plug it in and play from their TV, they can just play Xbox games through a streaming service. Why not? Just absolutely why not? Because it's good for everyone. It's good for Nintendo because it means they get to sell this awesome feature, and it's good for Game Pass because they get to sell more subscriptions. And Nintendo have played with this before. Like last year, it might have been the year before, but they had Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Remedy's Control were both running on the Switch through a streaming service, but it was in Japan only. And it was sort of like a dry run for this sort of system, and the fact that it was so successful and it worked well enough and everyone enjoyed it, there's no reason why this wouldn't be able to work,
It'd be perfect for most games that aren't competitive, I would say.
I would say so too, yeah.
And even probably some decent multiplayer games. As good as, the Mario Galaxy and not Mario Galaxy, Mario Kart games and Super Smash Bros, things like that. Those are good multiplayer games, but they're not really as, AAA quality as like a Call of Duty or something like a Fortnite, where you need to have the latency and the as minimal as possible. I mean, it could be that my next console is a Nintendo, and I just pay for the Xbox Game Pass, and I just play all my Xbox games through the on my TV at 4K at 60 FPS on a Nintendo console, and then get a load of Mario and Zelda games.
Yeah, and I mean, like, as even listening to that, it sounds wacky, right?
That sounds wacky, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to us, like old school people that are just like grown up with these sort of three consoles over the past sort of 20 years, just like slugging it out, trying to get one up on each other, and then suddenly two of them just combine, like, to help each other out in this respect. But I think it feels right almost.
It feels like Xbox they're providing hardware, but they're not banking all of their money on the hardware, and it's more about the software, and that would play into that. You're right. Nintendo and Xbox could totally benefit both from that, and they totally would, because they'd get my money. But both companies would get my money.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Switch right now, and I already have an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription. Like the fact that if I could go on holiday or I'm on somewhere else, like if I'm just in the park or something, I can tether it to my phone and I can just play Xbox games in the park.
Wow.
Like stuff like that is just, why not? Because it's not actually affecting the Nintendo ecosystem, because if for whatever reason later down the line they turned around and said, okay, we're not actually going to work with Xbox anymore, and they just took out the feature of the Game Pass system, Like there's nothing hard set within these systems to say, okay, we're sort of tethered together anymore. It's just an app that would come out on the Switch that you would just access through, because totally could. Nothing's stopping them doing it. But, yeah.
Wow, that is kind of mind blowing if you think about it, and it's possible. But these could just be people that like the console and put them in their streams.
Exactly, right. This could be absolutely nothing.
And this could be a terrible E3, and we could just be like, what's all these garbage games coming out? What? I don't want to play any of these games. This is the best thing? This is your big announcement? And then there's no announcement from PlayStation, and it's just like everything's the same, and there's just some games that no one wants to play. Right. Well, say no one wants to play, but I want to play.
Someone will.
Yeah, that could be it.
Play. But yeah, the only thing I would say to this though is that there's a lot of people speculating right now that if sort of Nintendo if Xbox do them this favor of putting all these Xbox games onto the sort of Switch, like what would Nintendo do in return? Like would they allow sort of like a Mario or a Zelda to come onto the Xbox Series X and things like that? I think that's highly unlikely.
That's unlikely, yeah.
I just do not see Nintendo letting go of any of their IP in any respect that way. Like they are a first party company. They keep all their games onto their system, and they're very, very egotistical in that respect. Like not in a bad way. Like it certainly works for them.
Persevering, yeah, because they're so unique that they have to have that. Otherwise, they could, and especially because they don't have the same numbers as Xbox or PlayStation. Right. Which is weird when you think about it. A handheld console that's so unique of its type doesn't sell as well as the PlayStation or Xbox. But
yeah, I mean, pace wise at the moment, I guess I know these. Obviously, there's only 8 million PlayStation 5s in the wild right now. There's obviously a hell of a lot more Switches. So,
that's a good point. Yeah.
So it could work out either way. But in terms of the ecosystems as a whole, obviously there's a lot more PlayStation players. There's probably even a lot more Xbox players than there is Nintendo players as a whole right now.
Yeah, as a whole.
Over the course of Xbox Series X, S, and the PlayStation, the Xbox One. I can't even keep up with all these names anymore. As well as all the PC players as well, obviously. But yeah, in terms of the actual software that's being played, probably Nintendo is probably the least played system, but that is their identity of keeping their sort of their cards close to their chest in that respect. So no, I do not think in any shape or form that we'll see anything to do with Xbox on the Switch, within a game, other than something like Smash Brothers. I think maybe a Master Chief could come to the Smash Brothers.
You don't think Mario would be a playable character in the next Halo?
No, I don't think so. No. Can you imagine that?
That would be hilarious.
It's me, a Mario.
Driving the Warthog.
Someone would play that. I think it would work. I think it would work the other way, where we could see a Master Chief within Smash Brothers. Absolutely, we could see a Warthog within Mario Kart or something. I could totally see that happening. But the other way around, in terms of having Breath of the Wild on the Series X or something, no, not in a million years. I just can't see that happening. Yeah,
I would like that.
Everyone would, but it's not going to happen.
No,
not in a million years.
No, I know. Yeah,
Xbox are Microsoft and Phil Spencer are throwing around a lot of money right now to get stuff done, and they're leaving ego at the door, and they're just saying, "Hey, we just want to get this done. How much money is it going to take?" And we
want to buy you, Bethesda. How much money is this going to take?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. The fact that stuff like that's happening, and they're not being egotistical about it, which is great. That's actually a really good thing for them to be. They're not saying we're on top of the world, you come to us sort of thing. They're going to everyone's doorstep and praying, and it's working. They're getting stuff done. So if this sort of deal does come around where Game Pass comes onto Switch, that is a huge deal. It's going to be, that would be massive. That would be as big as my ultimate dream would be to get something like Steam onto Xbox Series X. That would be a good day. And this is sort of on par with that. So it'll be a very good thing for both Xbox and Nintendo. But I can imagine it's also making Sony a little bit nervous whenever they see one of these Switches show up in the background of the Xbox.
So what do you think is gonna? Do you think anything is gonna happen at E3 with Nintendo? Do you think it's gonna be an announcement? And what do you think the announcement will be?
I think
Let's do a prediction. First prediction of the whole podcast series.
right. I think during the Nintendo conference, which will be like a digital event, I think we'll see like Phil Spencer walking into the void, and then he'll sort of give the speech of like, that's right, and like they'll both be stood there next to each other. Like I can't remember his name, the head of Nintendo that's doing all of the press stuff right now. But it'll be like him and Phil Spencer in the white void together, and they'll be like, "Oh, and we're gonna re-announce him, blah blah blah."
And they'll shake hands.
Forward. Right, or they'll bow at each other, right?
Oh yeah.
Like right, and it'll be or both. And I think that's how they'll do it. I think Nintendo will get the announcement now. I think
that's fair enough. If you're hosting the hardware and the software coming to the hardware, yeah, I'd say it's fair enough that goes to the Nintendo to.
It also matches, like I was saying before, like the whole fact that they're leaving ego at the door with a lot of these deals.
Yes.
I think this sort of falls in line with that. They would just want to, like, yeah, this is all you. Like, we're just happy to be here. Like, we're here for the gamers and things like that, and that's a good sign. So I think that's my top line prediction. Now I think that's what will happen.
I hadn't thought about that, but when you say that, I just want that to happen so bad. That would be so monumental. That'd be like, that's kind of like more monumental than like Xbox announcing the Xbox, because it's like back then it was like, oh, okay, there's some new hardware. That's interesting. There's a new console. Like, new consoles wasn't, by the time the Xbox announced that there was a new console, that wasn't news. The fact that there was a new console, because there's been like Dreamcast and the Sega Mega Drive was old, and then there was new systems but for the crossover to happen, that is way more different than anything that's happened. Even bigger than like Xbox buying Bethesda, which is huge.
Yeah, I do have another theory about that though. Even though if Xbox and Nintendo do merge together like this anyway, not like actually merge, like sort of Bethesda style merge anyway.
We bought Nintendo.
Right. God,
can you imagine that?
Yeah, that'd be impossible pretty much. But I do think there is something on the other side of the fence when it comes to PlayStation. It would not surprise me if they were cutting deals with Apple.
Okay. And what would that kind of look like then? How would that work? So App Store on the PlayStation 5?
I think like you're talking about PlayStation Now, which is sort of the streaming service, which is on PlayStation, which is like Xcloud basically, which is the Gaikai service, which they have on the PlayStation right now. Imagine that service coming to Apple TV and Apple iPhones and iPads. So you're able to play PlayStation games like on these systems. And you got to remember, like we're talking different numbers here. We're not talking 8 million units of the PlayStation 5 sold. No, we're talking like 300 million iPhones that are out there right now and things like that. Like there's a billion iPhones in the wild. And if you just, by the way, we're teaming up with PlayStation, you can play games like stream it over the web. Like that's a huge deal as well. And I think that would be a good rivalry to have for PlayStation, because obviously Microsoft and Apple on a completely different industry in terms of the software industry of operating systems. They are rivals and they hate each other's guts and they don't work well together. Like they sometimes break through with little things, but if this is something that they could, like, hey, Apple, like we're trying to go up against Microsoft here. Do you want to give us a hand? And Apple will be like, yes, absolutely, we'll give you a hand. But I think that's the next move that'll be coming. But do
you think that'll happen on E3 then, or that'll be a reaction to the E3?
I'm not sure. Like that's like tinfoil hat. Like in the future, at some point, that's going to happen. I think that
would be the biggest E3 ever. Like you cannot beat that. Like that would be the biggest.
We're at the start of a new generation. Like this is the time to make them sort of big announcements. These are the times to start throwing punches and getting this stuff in to convince people to switch over to your platform. Like I remember when Xbox One was doing absolutely horrifically and Phil Spencer took over in the first year that Phil Spencer was there. He was like, yep, we're bringing backwards compatibility back to the Xbox. And when that happened, that was a huge turn and shift for Xbox. And everyone was like, okay, maybe this console is completely out. And it sort of survived and it had a half decent generation by the end of the Xbox Series, the Xbox One. So this is the time that this sort of stuff happens. So we'll see.
Because again, it comes down to money. Like backwards compatibility, at the end of the day, is value for money, isn't it?
Indeed.
If I spend X amount on this thing, what's going to happen? Yeah, I would love that to happen. But I think that I wouldn't be surprised if none of this happens. And
yeah, that too.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
And they just maybe they'll go, hey, we like Nintendo, and Xbox go, hey, we like Xbox. That's it. And it's just a dig at PlayStation. That's it.
Yeah, like we could, like, it could come about and Nintendo like, oh, we've got this huge announcement to make with Xbox, and it's like, okay, Master Chief is coming to Smash Brothers, and that's it. Like,
and
that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
For all
or
we
the
know.
Warthog is going to be on Mario Kart, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just makes way too much sense for Xbox to not for a Game Pass to come onto the Switch. It just makes way too much sense. They've got no competition there. Switch needs these huge third parties to come over in some capacity and whatever way. This would work. Like, and there's no reason why they would both benefit from it.
They'd have my money. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes no sense why it wouldn't happen. So fingers crossed. Who knows? But yeah, that would be my hope. Because I think, like, what this ultimately comes down to is these companies are starting to read the writing on the wall, which is there's a good chance by the end of this generation there might be more people streaming games than they are actually downloading them and playing them physically.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and that's the way that the industry is going, they need to start coming up with these services sooner rather than later. And Xbox are definitely ahead on this. But if Nintendo can just turn around like, all right, we can just jump in on this deal that you've already got going, Xbox.
They don't need to create their own infrastructure
it's done.
Or do it.
And it's just an app, it's one app. Yeah. And it's not, they don't have to do anything.
And who's good at doing apps?
The Xbox app.
Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all to play for at this point. And how PlayStation react to this with PlayStation Now mixed with the PlayStation Play Pass or whatever you want to call it.
I love that. PlayStation Play Pass. If it's not that,
Play
it's
Pass.
going to be...
Play Pass. It should be Play Pass or Play Ticket or something. It's going to be something stupid either way, which we'll all laugh at first and then we'll get used to saying it.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But yeah, we'll see.
Good. Well, I think we're probably there, aren't we?
Yeah, we can call it a day, but we want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in this week. If you are interested in catching us on another episode, then please feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube. We are the Polygon Forest. You can find us on various hashtags for the Polygon Forest. You can find me on Twitter. I am at Hillfort Games. And where can people find you, Chris?
I am at Acrylic Pixel.
Cool. So make sure you subscribe and like, comment, all that sort of good stuff. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you can get notifications for when we do upload.
When we do upload. It's usually Mondays that we upload. And bank holiday Monday tomorrow, so there'll be no excuse. It'll definitely be up tomorrow.
You be sat around in your underwear, you might as well whack on an episode of the Polygon Forest while you do so. Just don't do anything else in your underwear while you're doing that. Because I don't know how comfortable I am with that.
Well, that's a good place to end it. All these mental images of our potential listeners in their underpants.
Indeed.
If you're in your underpants, please comment.
Yeah, let us know. In fact, don't, because that algorithm is probably not something that we need. But either way, have yourself a very good bank holiday Monday, and we shall catch you next week. So until then, bye-bye.
Bye.